It is noon, and I think we will get started. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tarun Timalsina. I'm a policy associate at JPAL Global. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are very excited to share more with you about JPAL, or the Abdul Latif Jameel Poverty Action Lab, a research center based at MIT's Economics Department, and also discuss the senior policy associate and the policy associate role, which we are currently hiring for. If you would like to stay up to date with our job offerings, please do give us a follow on one of our socials on X, LinkedIn, Facebook, or Instagram. So our global recruiting team consists of three people for now. We have Nika Santos, who is a senior policy associate, myself, and I'm a policy associate working in our PEG sector. And we have Poonam Bali, who is joining us as the Associate Director of Human Resources. We also have Andre, who will be helping the recruitment team with recruiting related to managers and senior managers levels, which will happen at a later time. So moving on, what do we do at JPAL? That is a big question. And so decades of research has shown that there are many complex drivers of poverty. And at JPAL, we conduct rigorous impact evaluations to shed light on this complexity. Our work is just part of the broader effort to reduce poverty globally, but by testing, innovating, and finding answers to critical questions, we help governments, donors, and NGOs become more effective. The global community has been tackling widespread poverty for many decades, yet billions of people still struggle to make ends meet. 47% of the world's population, as you can see on the graphic, which is about over 3 billion people, live on less than $6.85 per day. Um, and it was particularly tragic that global extreme poverty rose in 2020 for the first time in over 20 years as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. The World Bank estimates that about 70 million additional people are living in poverty today as a result of the pandemic. So at JPAL, we conduct research to find answers to some of the complex questions around poverty. There are many age-old questions, but also new challenges that are arising. For instance, rising inequality, the effect of climate change, mass displacement and migration, persistent poverty in countries where overall incomes are rising. Our affiliated researchers try to understand the conditions and cause of poverty and to tailor solutions to tackle these problems. By using the creative potential of our researchers, innovating on social programs and testing them, we help governments, donors, and NGOs be more effective, improving lives for millions of people.
Thanks, Tarun. So I'll share more about what exactly we do at JPEL. In the field of impact evaluation, the most rigorous type of evaluation is a randomized evaluation. And this is a type of research that we do at JPEL. Because of the way they're conducted, randomized evaluations can tell us not only whether a specific policy or program had an impact, but also to measure the scale of that impact. And if the study is really well designed, it can tell us why we see the results that we do. Because we're built on research and we are driven by our passion to learn and to solve poverty through this research, innovation and learning is at the heart of our work. We think that if we're not learning, we're not innovating, and policies and programs will continue failing the people they're trying to help if we fail to do so. So can I have folks just put into the chat, and you should have access to the chat. And if you don't, Tarun, can you give folks access to do that? What your level of familiarity with randomized evaluation is, or RCTs? Have you never heard of it? Is it something you've heard about, something you're learning about in a class right now? Or do you know it so well that actually you should be the one leading this lecture today? So yeah, please feel free to drop it in the chat so we can get to know all of you a little bit better. So our work is anchored by a network of more than 390 affiliated researchers who are based at over 120 leading universities around the world. Obviously, not everybody, not all the universities are listed on this slide. And JPAL's sectors and pillars are areas in which research is concentrated around a specific topic. We have them all listed on my screen right now. In each of these sectors, we have a team of experts and staff who work with our affiliated researchers to share their research with wider audiences and to draw out the key policy insights. And today, while we will be talking about JPAL and working in our policy and communication department or vertical more broadly, I want to share at this point, we're hiring specifically right now for the education, AI, agriculture, and health sectors at the associate level. There may be openings in gender and other sectors in the future, and this is constantly changing. So we encourage you to, when you submit your application, list all the sectors for which you're interested in or that you would be interested to be considered for. Great. So I'm seeing some of your responses in the chat. And while I read through some of them, I'd love for you to go to menti.com and use this code that you see on my screen, 65177916, to join and submit a vote for a question we have on there. I'll also put the voting link in the chat. 1 second. So you can access that from your desktops. And while you all submit your answers, I will read some of your responses to your familiarity with RCTs. Most of you are saying that you are familiar with it, learning about it currently, took a course on it, fantastic. Some of you have learned about it from JPAL, which is good to note we're fulfilling our mission, at least for the people who are in this room. Okay, good to know that most of you here are familiar and are probably in the right place to be applying for a JPAL at this point. Okay, I'm going to jump to the mentee. And so the question was, if you could eliminate one constraint for a farmer to maximize their profits, which constraint would you choose? Obviously, there are a lot of factors at play here, preventing farmers who are rational economic decision makers from maximizing their profits. And we can categorize the factors preventing them from doing so into a few barriers, which we call constraints. And most of you identified weather-related risk as a constraint you'd want to eliminate. And pretty distant second is credit. And these are just a few, but I'm curious to hear or read from you in the chat why you chose the constraint that you voted for. But whatever you chose, one main takeaway we wanted to impart on you all with this exercise is that it's tricky to disentangle constraints to identify which one binds for decision making. And it will differ rather from context to context. And oftentimes farmers are facing multiple constraints. And the RCTs that many of our affiliates conduct are able to disentangle a lot of this information and learn what are the binding constraints. Oops, sorry, I wasn't sharing my screen properly. There we go. Now you can see the results. A lot of the RCTs we do are able to learn more about what these constraints are and learn the best ways to address these constraints. So hopefully from this very simple activity, you have a better understanding of the type of issues we encounter in our work at JPAL and how we think about them. Great. It's interesting. The last time we ran this webinar, credit was the most voted for response, and now it's weather-related risk. I wonder what that says about what the discourse is in the climate space. Great. So let me share a little bit more about how we do our work and where we operate. So as I hinted at earlier, we identify unsolved problems, constraints, and policy priorities. And overall, our mission is to reduce poverty by ensuring that policy is informed by scientific evidence. We do this through three main activities or functions, that is research, policy outreach, and training. So first, research, we fund new cutting-edge research on the questions through our research funding competitions, which we call initiatives. And we help our affiliated researchers to carry out their projects by providing research support on the ground. In each of the sectors and pillars that we work in, we have policy experts on how to adapt research findings and distill them into advice and guidance to governments. And that's where we see the informing policy and practice part of our work. We also advise NGOs, foundations, and others who are seeking to make their programs more effective. Then finally, based on this evidence, we provide funding, technical assistance, and embedded staff to governments and NGOs NGOs to help shape programs and policies to deliver results. And so our capacity building work also draws on our research expertise and our experience. We teach practice and principles of randomized evaluations to researchers and research staff on one hand, and also to our partner organizations through tailored workshops and other types of education offerings. We also provide online and in-person education programs with a focus on data and evidence use in policymaking. So these three pillars are very closely interconnected, as you've seen, and they're cyclical. Innovative research generates important policy insights, and the trainings are then designed to lead to new policy-relevant research. In this way, we try to ensure the sustainability of our work. Great. Sorry, I was distracted by your excellent responses in the chat, which I'll be glad to read out later. So this map shows where our randomized evaluations have taken place all over the world. Our network of affiliates, invited researchers, and regional scholars have conducted over 2,500 randomized evaluations in more than 120 countries. And these evaluations are often conducted in close partnership with an NGO, a government, a social enterprise, or a company. And this number continues to grow every day. Alongside this global knowledge that we're producing, we have local grounding in 9 regional offices and many other local partnerships. And this local grounding is critical to the success of our work. We also have many other satellite offices around the world, which we're not able to fit into this well-designed map. Our teams in our many offices understand local issues, local contexts, and local languages. And they form close relationships with partners like the governments, advocacy organizations, and NGOs to help map evidence to the priorities of their partner. And in this way, they build up a culture of evidence-informed policymaking. So now I'll go over an example of our mission of reducing poverty and how this is put into action. Essentially, you want to show how rigorous randomized research conducted by JPAL-affiliated professors has influenced policy and practice and improved the well-being of those who the programs are reaching. And this example I'm going to talk about is very close to my heart, especially because it's focused on the education and how we help students to learn better. So Pratham, which is India's largest education NGO, developed Teaching at the Right Level, or TARL as it's more commonly known, to address issues of unrealistic curricula that are not adapted to children's learning levels. As you probably know from your own experience, schools are usually organized by age and grade, with children progressing from one grade to the next, regardless of where they are in their learning level compared to their peers. And this highlights an ongoing problem of children perhaps being in school, like they're enrolled and they attend classes, but they're not actually learning while in school. So the Teaching at the Right Level aims to build foundational skills in math and reading for all children before they exit primary school, regardless of where they are in their learning once they enter primary school. So the approach works by dividing children, generally in grades 3 to 5, into groups based on their learning needs rather than their age or grade. So whether they are able to decode letters or whether they can read full sentences, they're grouped into those particular groups. They dedicate time in the program to foundational skills rather than focusing solely on the curriculum. In fact, it's a way of getting rid of the tyranny of the curriculum, as the founder of Pratham calls it. And they regularly assess student performance rather than relying only on an end-of-year examination. So 6 randomized evaluations conducted in partnership with JPAL professors in 7 states of India show that the TARL approach is consistently effective when implemented systematically and has led to some of the largest effect sizes rigorously measured in the education literature. For example, in one modality of the TARL program, which are called learning camps, the program doubled the number of children who could read a paragraph or a story. This long-term partnership between JPAL and Pratham demonstrate how findings from an evaluation can provide important inputs for continuously evolving the program, which in turn is rigorously evaluated. So it's this process of iteration through evaluation. So one key learning from decades of research is that TARL works best as a holistic approach that reorients the education system towards focusing on learning outcomes, especially for foundational learning. I'll pause right here because I'm noticing a lot of questions in the chat already, which is great. Please continue sending those. And I'll ask my colleagues who are with me right now, Tarun, Andre, and Poonam, to begin answering them in the chat, and we can get to some more questions during Q&A later. Thanks.
I would also encourage everybody to put your questions in the Q&A section where we can systematically answer your questions that everybody can see the responses to. I would appreciate your help on that.
Thanks for the reminder, Tarun. Great. So I've told a story of Tarl in India, but this issue of children being in school but not learning is not unique to India. And it's a problem that we face all over the world. A range of assessments find that a substantial portion of grade 5 students across sub-Saharan Africa, in fact, are not able to do basic arithmetic tasks, much like the students in India when Tarl was first started. So the Ministry of Education in Zambia reached out to JPAL for advice on policies and programs to address these low learning levels. And JPAL Africa, which is one of our regional offices, organized a learning journey for the senior government officials to visit Pratham schools in India and learn about the TARL approach. Then JPAL Africa then worked with the government and other partners to adapt the approach and to pilot it in Zambia. TARL then scaled in Zambia and reached over 1,900 schools in 3 provinces and has been very successful. If you look up the literature, this program is called Zambia Catch Up, and it's one of the great success stories of an adaptation and scale that we're very proud of at JPAL. But the scale up didn't stop in Zambia. The process of adapting and piloting TARL rather, is now replicating across sub-Saharan Africa, where JPAL and Pratham are partnered with governments and organizations to support TARL in their own schools. So far, and this number is probably outdated by now, TARL has reached over 1 million students in 12 countries throughout sub-Saharan Africa. And combined with their reach in India, the TARL approach will now reach over 60 million students. Because of this work that we have done in partnership with affiliates, with the implementing partner, with governments, a number of influential organizations now recognize TARL as an effective approach to teaching foundational skills and to address learning loss. TARL has been particularly influential as education policymakers around the world have endeavored to address learning losses resulting from the COVID-19 pandemic and the associated school closures. In fact, the Global Education Evidence Advisory Panel, or the GEEP, published a Smart Buys report on cost-effective solutions for improving foundational literacy and numeracy, and named TARL as one of their great buys. And it's only one of 3 great buys that they mentioned. The scale-up and evidence dissemination of TARL is because of Pratham's efforts, outreach, and the evidence-based research produced by JPAL affiliates, and how we were able to collaborate very closely with them. So I'll stop with the storytelling there and pass it back to Tarun to talk more about our team.
Yeah, thank you, Nika, for the wonderful overview. Next, I'll share more about how our team is structured at JPAL Global and how different types of and what the different types of roles exist that we hire for. Moving on to the next slide. So, as an overview, JPAL Global has 4 main departments. The first one is policy and communications. It's by far our biggest department. And so the policy associate and senior policy associate roles that we're hiring for will be under this umbrella of department that we have at JPAL. So as an overview, PNC staff connect the dots between economics and policy, and we work closely with organizations to build partnerships that promote evidence-informed development policy. We also have the research education and training department within JPAL Global. We lovingly call it RET, and the RET team works on sort of equipping policymakers, researchers, and staff with the necessary knowledge to conduct rigorous impact evaluations. We also have the evidence to scale department at JPAL Global. We call it the E2S team, and the E2S team collaborates with policymakers and practitioners to support JPAL's efforts to catalyze adoption of evidence-based policies at scale. And finally, we have the finance and operations team, which oversees the general and financial operations of the organizations. And outside of the positions at the policy for the policy and communications group that we're talking about today, we also have open positions for the red team as well as the finance and operations team. And you can find more details about these opportunities on the career page of our website. So a little bit about our senior policy associate and policy associate position. As an overview, this position has four main buckets of role that you would be doing. The first one is evidence communication and dissemination. This involves writing publications that translate economic research into lessons for policymakers and a lot more. The details you can find on our career page. We also, policy associates and senior policy associates also engage in topic specialization. So JPAL has over 11 sectors. As Nika mentioned, we are hiring for particular sectors, but also these things change and we might be hiring for more sectors as time moves on. But right now, we're especially looking for the AI sector, health sector, agricultural sector, and potentially the gender sector. But as a policy associate in any of these sectors, you would be specializing in the evidence, in the randomized evaluation evidence that has been generated in these sectors. You will also have the opportunity, in addition to sort of the writing and the topic specialization dimensions, to sort of manage the day-to-day of research initiative management at JPAL Global. And these initiatives are sector-specific ongoing competitive research funds that are hosted by specific grounds, by specific sectors. And on top of all these duties, you would also be helping out with special projects, knowledge management, liaising with JPAL regional offices, and a number of other tasks that come up within JPAL Global. So very this is a snapshot of roles at JPAL Global that we typically hire for. This is specific to the policy and communications vertical. We hire interns as well, even though we're not doing that at the moment. And internship positions are typically for rising juniors and seniors in college, and they work part-time during their academic year. Um, we are currently hiring, as you know, for policy associates and senior policy associates, as well as policy managers and senior policy managers. Policy associates typically have between 0 and 2 years of experience, and they either have a bachelor's degree or a master's degree. Senior policy associates, on the other hand, they also have typically have a master's degree, but the average years of experience for them is between 3 and 5 years. For policy managers, we require them to have a master's degree and about 5 years or more of experience. Whereas for senior policy managers, we ask that they have 7 or more years of experience on top of a master's degree. You should apply for the position you think best fits your given level of experience, but please don't spend too much time thinking about this because we'll sort you into the most appropriate level given your resume and work experience. And as a note, these guidelines might be different for different JPAL regional offices, and these ones are specifically for the global office. This is the recruitment timeline for the policy associate and senior policy associate position. As you know, applications are due January 5 at midnight Eastern Time. At some point in January, after the applications close, we'll invite eligible applicants to undergo a writing test. And depending on your performance on the writing test, we'll invite another subset of applicants to initial interviews in early February. And another subset of those candidates will then be forwarded to the final interview stage, which will happen around mid-February, and we hope to make final decisions by the end of February. And please note that this is the schedule of hiring for policy associates and senior policy associates. We're still working to finalize the recruitment timeline for policy managers and senior policy managers, but you can expect it to be a very similar timeline to this with a lag of about a month. More details will be forthcoming on our careers page soon. So how should you prepare for a policy role at JPAL Global? Some of the things that we like to mention is coursework in economics, econometrics or statistics, and international development, because that is the core of the work we do in terms of translating economics into policy. You should also practice policy writing and communication, example, through coursework or op-eds, blogs, social media management, donor relations, etc. Because a lot of what we do in the policy vertical at JPAL Global is sort of translate that research into policy, and that involves a lot of communicating and writing. We would also encourage you to read up on prominent research, especially, RCTs, because that is the focus of our organization, especially in your sector of interest. You can access summaries of these research that we funded through JPAL on our evaluation summaries page on our website. That would be a great starting point to sort of get a flavor of the kind of research that we fund. And we would also encourage you to tailor your cover letter to demonstrate your understanding of JPAL's work and mission and how you fit into JPAL's broader mission and how you hope to contribute to it. With that, thank you so much. We are happy to take any questions. Please put them in the chat in the Q&A section. Um, we will be responding to the Q&A in text, and perhaps Nika and Andre, if there's any questions that we think is very relevant for all of us, we could also just unmute ourselves and provide our perspective.
Thank you, Tarun. I will pause our recording right now. And actually, I'll stop